West.
It was New Year's Eve 2005 in London, and Banaz's father, an Iraqi Kurd and devout Muslim, told her to grab her suitcase and go with him to her grandmother's. There, she was forced to drink alcohol to prep her for what was to come. She returned to her family believing her father could never bring himself to kill her. Just weeks after leaving hospital, Banaz was abducted by two men, raped, strangled with a shoelace, and then her naked body literally packed into this suitcase.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Here it's Lavender here, and today I'm back with another true crime case. Today I'm doing the true crime case, the honor killing murder of Banaz Mahmod story. Disclaimer, I'm sorry if I say or pronounce his names wrong. I've always been horrible with names, so I'm sorry if I pronounce their names wrong. So let's get started into this true crime case murder. So this case has been featured in a number of media and TV outlets and news outlets. You know, Banaz's case was chronicled in the 2012 documentary film Banaz, a love story directed and produced by Dalev Khan. In 2015, actor/rapper Riz MC released the song entitled Benz, which was based on Banaz's true crime story, and his mixtape released on St. George's Day. A ballad was created by a 13-year-old girl narrating the story of Banaz and published in Sisterhood. Love Like Blood, a 2017 from the Tom Thorne crime series by Arthur Mark Billingham, was inspired by the Banaz story and dedicated to the memory of both her and someone else. And last but not least, a two-part drama, Honor, chronicles the investigation into the murder of Banaz, starring Keithley Howes and Caroline Godey. It was screened on ITV and on 28 and 29 of September 2020. So the background and the story that led up to her murder. So she was born into the family called the Mahmods. Family were a strict, traditional, like Muslim Kurdish family from the rural tribe area of Qadaliza in Iraqi Kurdistan. Banaz's father and his wife, Behada, had a son and 5 daughters. The family sought and sought asylum in the United Kingdom in 1995 when Banaz was just 10 years old at the time. Banaz's eldest sister had already been in an arranged marriage, as did her younger sister Payman, who was married at 16 to a man 15 years her senior. Backenhall, 2 years older than Banaz, fled the family home in 2002 and spent time in foster care system. The eldest of 4 daughters, including Banaz, were subject to female genital mutilation, a known traditional, very common practice in, the religion of Islam and in traditional Middle Eastern countries. There were reports that she had been subjected to physical abuse and mental abuse and threats on her life because she mixed with people in her family who did not approve of her Western lifestyle and her experiments with Western clothing, makeup, or any of the Western ideals, pushed by, in the West, because it wasn't traditional. They just didn't like it. They didn't want any part of their family to do anything with American or, the Western, lifestyle. She reported that there was an attempt made to kill her in her life, and that her father threatened to kill her mother, sisters, and himself if she did not return to the family home, gaslighting her. Instead of returning home, Bacall lived in hiding, constantly moving, and never leaving the house without wearing a full veil. Her father's failure to control Bacall was viewed as a weakness within the Kurdish community because, again, they believed that the daughters are property of her father, and that a woman's, is lower than a man. At age 16 or 17, Banaz was forced into arranged marriage against her will with a man from a family hometown. By her account, he was 10 years her senior, illiterate and old-fashioned. She described his mindset as something from 50 years ago, aka outdated sexist values, She came into contact with police throughout her entire marriage, reporting that she had been raped, beaten, abused by him on multiple occasions. Her family are fully aware of the violence inflicted upon her, but she was a woman and she was considered property, and they just told her that leaving her abusive relationship and her husband would bring shame on them, because I guess they didn't believe in divorce, because again, they just hate women. Despite this, with the abuse continuing, she eventually actually left, the relationship, marriage of 2 years. She got divorced and returned to the family home in July 2005 and started a relationship with someone of her own choosing. Blanda's uncle, her cousins, and father all disapproved of her actions and had been informed that she was dating another man and was no longer in the marriage. On December 2nd, 2005, a meeting was held at the family home, where it was agreed by her family that both her and her boyfriend should be killed for bringing shame on this family and the community in the area, because they were laughed at, I guess, by the whole situation. Fearing for her safety, Benz went to the police to report that her uncle had threatened to kill both her and her boyfriend, and they didn't believe her at all. On New Year's Eve, the police were called to a cafe in Wildenton, where Banaz had arrived in a distressed state, saying her father had tried to kill her. She was under the influence of alcohol, which her father made her drink, had injuries on her hands, having smashed the window to try to escape. Described as distraught and terrified by the cafe and hospital staff. The policewoman who interviewed her didn't believe her. No one believed her. She was referred to as manipulative and melodramatic and wanted to charge her with criminal damage for breaking the window. While she was in the hospital, Benz gave an account of the events to her boyfriend, in which she recorded on his phone and later handed to the police later on. On January 22nd, an attempt was made to kidnap her boyfriend. 3 of the men involved were among those Benz had already named to the police. Both she and her boyfriend reported the incident, and Benz was scheduled to return to the police station on January 24th, but she never arrived. On the morning of January 24, 2006, Banaz's parents left the family home to take their youngest daughter to school and go shopping in the area, leaving Banaz asleep on the lounge couch. Her uncle, father, and cousins all arrived at the property shortly thereafter. The trio subjected Banaz to more than 2 hours of rape and torture before she was strangled to death with a ligature and murdered, and then her body was later put in a suitcase, transported by a vehicle to a house in Handsworth, West Midlands, and buried in the garden area. On January 25th, 2006, Banaz was reported missing by someone who had become extremely concerned for her welfare after being unable to get into contact with her. The police again did not take the report seriously until later on. Consequently, after investigating a little bit, her parents and uncle were interviewed and their homes were searched. The interviews exposed inconsistencies in the account originally given by her parents. An analysis of the victim's boyfriend phone records indicated that Banaz's father was not the indulgent, so-called cold, nice, awesome, amazing parent he claimed to be. The investigation was taken over by the Metropolitan Police Homicide and Serious Crime Command and was led by Detective Chief Inspector Coraline Good, initially working on the assumption that Banaz was still alive, being held against their will. Numerous searches and arrests were conducted. However, there had been no sign of her. Her phone had not been active since late January 23rd, and her bank account remained untouched. Her father, her uncle, along with her cousins were all arrested. They were all uncooperative. The community stood behind the murderers, the people arrested, despite the community's obstruction. On February 4th, 2006, the father was charged with murder while in custody. He slipped and let it be known that he was bragging about his role in his daughter's murder and the role of the others, the uncle and the cousins, and they were all implicated, and they were all arrested, and some of them fled to other countries, but they got caught. And on May 1st, 2006, her father was charged with murder, and her uncle, I think, was charged with murder in August. In June 2007, Banaz's father was and uncle were unanimously found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 to 23 years respectively. One of them pleaded guilty to murder shortly after the start of the trial and was sentenced to life with a minimum of 17 years. In November 2010, another family member was found guilty of murder and sentenced to at least 22 to 21 years in prison, respectively. And in December 2013, Dana Abden was found guilty and jailed for 8 years for helping to dispose of Benz's body in the area. A man challenged both his conviction and sentence. The appeal was dismissed in September 2014. And it was found that the handling of Benz's case by the police in the area, leading up to her murder was investigated by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. It was found that she had been let down and that death threats that she reported were not taken seriously by the police because they just didn't believe her. They didn't believe the victim. And yeah, if you guys like this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Bye guys, see you next video.